Hello, and I must admit, Andrea, when she did say she was going to put me on centre stage, I was like, oh shit, what have I just asked for? But this is of my own volition. And she did say to me, put my big girl pants on, and so I am. I would much rather be sitting down where you are and one of you presenting up here, so I will keep that in mind for next time. But my name's Simone Strachan, or Sim for short, and I'm Head of Talent at Sportsbet. And today I'm really wanting to talk to you about leveraging your employee Tapestry so that you can set yourself apart and really demonstrate authenticity. Before I do kick off, I do want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people, and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging, and any Indigenous people here today. Secondary to that, what I also do want to do is acknowledge the awesome team that we have at Sportsbet, holistically within our business, but also within the talent space. There is a couple of us here today as well, and nothing that I'm going to share with you is a single person effort, is the combination of a whole team, and they're pretty bloody amazing too. And so what I'm going to be chatting to you a little bit about today is going to do a little bit of a quick overview of 2023 talent market predictions. I'm not going to go through those in a huge amount of detail, but just a bit of a recap. And then what we're going to do is a little bit of aligning on some housekeeping. So when I'm talking employer brand, what am I referring to versus EVP or employee value proposition, because the terms can be used really interchangeably. Don't worry, we're not going to do an hour deep dive into either of them, just a quick check-in. And then what I really am keen to do, we've heard Adam chat to us about before HR being data-driven, and also some presentations earlier. I wanted to introduce as well a lens from a statistics perspective of some of the key stats that are on the minds of our HR leaders, and also how we begin to show the potential impacts of some employer brand initiatives on our business so that you can show real return on investment. And that came through really strongly in Adam's presentation before, which was really quite awesome. And then what we're going to do is do a deep dive into two particular employer brand initiatives. I'm going to chat to you about what we've done in terms of our employee ambassador program at Sportsbet over the last nearly 2 years or so. And then also chat to you about our referral program. And I know for many of you, some of those concepts won't be new at all. And the idea is I'm not hoping to knock you off your seats in terms of introducing what employer brand, employee referral program, and also ambassador programs are, but hoping to show you what journey we've gone on for the last few years. And then importantly, finishing with some steps now that you can take. I think that that's incredibly important. It's all well and good to come to days like today and get some really awesome strategic content, but actually what could you go away and take and do tomorrow in your businesses and be impactful? And so before we jump into this slide, I just wanted to get a bit of a show of hands in terms of where your business is at with its plans for its workforce strategy this year. And there's a couple of options here. There's, if you're intending to grow as a business, if you're intending to remain steady, if you're right-sizing and you're comfortable to share that, or if you're unsure. So I was just hoping to get a bit of a quick show of hands. Who in the room has their business looking to grow this year? Yep. Awesome. And who is looking to remain steady for 2023? I'm going to put us up because that's a Sportsbet piece. And who, if they're comfortable to share, is either currently right-sizing or undergoing aspects of that nature? No one is, no one's comfortable to share. And unsure, which is totally cool if you're unsure. And what's really interesting about that, what we saw in the room then, is actually it really aligns to a PwC CEO report from 2023 that's been released, which is saying that the majority of CEOs, 75%, are saying that they are not looking to reduce headcount this year, which is a really important metric. In addition to that, 78% of CEOs from that report also highlighted the ability to locate or attract talent, whether that be internal or external, as the number one thing on their mind this year, secondary to cyber security risks and threats. And so when we begin to look at the talent market predictions for this year, I'm not going to go and read through all of these. You'll be really familiar with them, but there are a couple of things that I wanted to call out that really do dovetail in many respects into employer brand initiatives. So value creation is at the absolute top of the list. So how do we create personalised experiences for individuals, whether they are candidates we're looking to attract or existing employees already within our business. There's a really big focus on data and how we optimise technology, so TA, tech stack, as it's often referred to, and also a real focus on DEI intentions. Not just DEI intentions in terms of what you stand for, but how are you actually translating that to impactful actions. The other two key things that I touch on this slide is there is a real continuing focus on wellness and flexibility. And definitely there's a lot of sentiment still from both employees and candidates around flexibility. So now that the pandemic is sort of on the other side, that is still a massive driving factor for a number of individuals. And there's a lot of debate going on at the moment around what hybrid working is, what's sustainable and whatnot. The other part that's a really big discussion point, and I've heard it in a couple of presentations touched on today, is how we view talent holistically. So no longer, if we are still doing this, should we be looking at ourselves as talent acquisition, acquiring talent. We are talent advisors, is how I heard Jessica describe it earlier, and I love it, in terms of we are key players, whether it comes to internal mobility, whether it comes to how we are linking in on workforce strategy planning and identifying ahead of time what the business needs, not just necessarily looking externally for that. And so just doing a little bit of housekeeping. So when I'm talking about employee brand for the purpose of this presentation, what I'm referring to is how you market yourselves as an employer that individuals may want to work for. And that includes both internal and external. A lot of people do tend to think of it as just external facing, but it is very much inward facing as well. And it also really works to increase awareness. So individuals having a level of knowledge about yourselves as an employer, separate to potentially your corporate brand, and then also increasing consideration. So that's great, someone might have an awareness of you as an employer, but are they actually willing to consider throwing their hat in the ring? That's two very different things. And then employee value proposition, or EVP, I'm not going to keep saying employee value proposition the whole time. EVP is essentially the promise or commitment that you make to individuals in return for whether it be their skills, their labour, or their time. And EVPs can manifest in different ways. They can show up in terms of people narratives, they can be really formal models, and then in other businesses they come through in everyday cultural aspects, employee content that's generated and shared, and so it's a less formal means, and some is a split between both. I think one of the things, I'm not going to dwell on this slide a lot because I'm keen to get into some of the examples that we've done over the last 2 years or so, but I think one of the things that's really important to acknowledge and to be kind to ourselves is everyone is going to be at different levels of maturity when it comes to their practices. And so when you look at the foundational aspect, you're talking about a business that either has no EVP or it's a singular EVP. And when it comes to employer branding, it's primarily owned by the recruitment or the HR team. And as you start to go towards the right, if you're evolving, your EVP is more talent segmented, which is what we've started to do at Sportsbet over the last 18 months or so. And your employer brand is owned by both the people and culture function, but also other corporate aspects within the business. So it could be traditionally your marketing space, but it's a collaborative effort. As you get into advancing, you're starting to look at job level specific EVP, and that's another space that we've begun to go into in the space in 2022, particularly because we, and it feels like everyone, was looking for software engineers in 2022. We are still on the lookout for React Native, so if anyone knows any software engineers React Native, hit up Luke, who can tell Prash, who's not here today. And from an employer branding perspective, the leadership team is deeply engaged in your employer branding. You're not pushing shit uphill, which is one of the terms I heard in one of the earlier presentations today. And if you're market leading, your EVP goes to a new level. It's individual or assignment focused, and what that means is you might have a particular niche program of work because of a business you've acquired, or it could be a particular project that you're embarking on that's a significant piece, and you actually morph your EVP to tailor to that. And your employer brand is engaged by the whole business, so it's no one team or department simply driving it. And as I said, you can be at various stages. You could be at a certain stage of the maturity model for your EVP, but at a completely different stage for your employer brand. One of the other pieces I wanted to share was what's on the mind of HR leaders, and I think this is really important for us because in many respects we are having regular interactions with CPOs, CHROs. I was at a conference last week and this really resonated with the room and what was on their minds. And so 47% of HR leaders are prioritising their employee experience in 2023, and 46% of HR leaders are also prioritising recruitment for 2023. And in addition to that, 36% state that their current sourcing approach isn't fit for purpose for finding the skills that they need. When we begin to look at business impacts, I think this slide is really important. I'm not going to go through every single little element on this slide, but if you want to begin to start simple in understanding how you can show aspects like cost avoidance, return on investment when it comes to elements of your employer brand strategy, yes, there's the typical mechanisms that you can measure. But if you look at the table on the far left, this was actually on a webinar that I attended by Reward Gateway, and I loved it because it was just simple. So if you look at the average Australian salary being 89K, which is modest in some respects, if you look at what some of the salaries of tech roles are that we've been particularly recruiting recently, your average cost to replace employees, according to the Workforce Institute report, is sitting at around 29K. Now, if you're in a business that's 750 people and you've got 20% attrition, you're looking at a cost of 4.4 million based on retention aspects alone. And for every 1% reduction that you reduce your attrition by, you're saving 220K, or more importantly, being able to repoint that into other key initiatives in the employer brand space. Getting onto some key aspects from an employer brand perspective, there is a number of initiatives that make up the sphere of employer branding, as many of you will know. But what I wanted to talk to today, importantly, was how you can leverage assets and individuals that are right under your nose now. Your employees are your best advocates for your organisation. And so two key employer brand initiatives that you can leverage them through is creating or evolving your ambassador program, and also launching or refreshing your employee referral program. And so two key things I'd share here is stats show that 70% of individuals will consider an employer's brand before even looking to apply for a job. And so it brings into question what kind of content or assets is out there that you are sharing and your employees are sharing. And also 91% of individuals are actually looking at doing research before they will actually commit to anything at all. So again, this is another key aspect of why employer brand initiatives are really critical to that. And so when we look at an ambassador program, essentially an ambassador program is a cohort of your employees that promote within their networks and or their greater networks what it's like to work for you as a business and what it's really like to work for you as a business. So authenticity is key. It's often a collaborative effort. When you look at some of the benefits associated with ambassador programs, you have aspects like it amplifies your existing employer brand, it increases awareness and consideration, which were the points that I touched on earlier. And also it's an awesome tool for authenticity. I cannot highlight that enough. If there's one thing you take from today, it would be that. And it also, less this is spoken about, but it actually creates a sense of connectedness among employees as well, which is really important, particularly from a retention perspective as well. And I'm not going to pretend for 2 seconds that your employee ambassador program is going to be the silver bullet for retaining all employees, but it is one form in the Tapestry that does that. It's also a really awesome avenue for content creation. And so some of the things that we have done at Sportsbet over the last 2 years or so is, so we originally started, it was back in 2021 that we started our employee ambassador program, and we finished the year with about 50 or so individuals, circa, in our ambassador program, and then we are now northwards of 150 individuals in our ambassador program. In terms of how they are involved, they get involved in various ways. So we've had individuals that we've put shout outs to, whether they would like to get involved or not. We've also had recommendations from leaders in the business or people's peers to get involved as well. And we've also had people just volunteer because they've got great stories that they're passionate about sharing. And so I think the really important part from a content perspective is, whilst it's really important for a company to share aspects from an employer brand perspective, individuals trust employee-generated content 3 times more than they do company content, and that is a real unique stat. And it also means that your employees are sharing content that is like no one else's because it is unique to them. And so a couple of ways that we've really leveraged our ambassadors, primarily at the moment it has been for employee-generated content. There are some other pieces more recently we've morphed into. But we have a dedicated sub-landing page for technology and data science on our careers website, and we also have a dedicated space for the draft, our early careers program, and we've leveraged a range of employee stories to house on those 2 locations, and they come in various formats. Some are short form, some are long form, so quite sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 minute reads. Some are sort of 1, 2 minute reads. Some are also multi-contributor pieces where individuals mightn't be comfortable or confident doing an article on their own. They actually look to collaborate with a couple of individuals. So some of our articles have upwards of 8, 9, 10 people contributing to them. And we talk about stuff that matters to that segment. So this is where your segmented EVP comes in. So on our technology page, I spent a lot of time in 2021 in particular really looking at what is it that resonates with technologists, and whilst there were synergies across multiple segments, what really became apparent was they were really interested to know, what tech stack am I going to be playing with every day? What are the really cool projects and initiatives that I'm going to be hands-on with, when you then compared to, for example, our contact centre space, where aspects of fun work culture and also career growth and progression were really important. So it makes sense to tailor the content to that. And that's what you'll see here under point number 1, is some examples around some of the journeys of our employees with those particular pieces. We also had, and this is the kudos to the work of Keela, who's sitting in the front row I can see there. She hates that I just called her out. If you see her, say hello. She's done some amazing work around our software engineering space. So we actually had 200 growth roles last year that we recruited for, and in total about 550 roles we recruited last year. And software engineering, we were looking for software engineers and data scientists and data engineers like everyone else. One of the things we did was actually leveraged some really good company content, but also had some social tiles where we leveraged employee testimonials. So just 1 or 2 sentences from real employees, their real words. And then if we look at the next page, some of the other ways we've leveraged employee content is through videos. We did partake in a pilot with Video My Job for their widget, and that enabled us to create some really awesome, authentic videos. The thing I would say with videos is just be authentic to you. One of the things that kind of highlights to me here is in the middle there, and I actually hate showing this, but it's been brought up enough that I've kind of gotten over it now. The video in the middle, which is actually Harriet, my daughter, who's now 3. When we recorded that video, I distinctly remember the time, and this is what you would be encouraging your employees that are in your ambassador program to do. It was Melbourne Cup Day, and we work Melbourne Cup Day. I don't know if you know, but it's biggest racing day for us. And so it's busy is an understatement. And we were in COVID still. I was working from home, and I decided if I was going to ask our employee ambassadors to partake in this, I had to lead by example. And so I'd have a bit of a go. And I hate videos, and I hate public speaking. So it was a good day. And so I recorded this video, and I said to myself, Harriet is going to lose her shit, and true to form, she did. If you watch that video, Harriet is only 1, but she is mocking me. So I was talking with my hands, Harriet was mocking me. At one point, she was hitting my head. It was a complete shit show. But actually, that's one of the most watched jobs on the Video My Job platform because what I was actually talking about in that video was Sportsbet's support for parents and our awesome parental leave. No filters, almost a breakdown on my behalf, but actually it resonates with people, and that's what's really important. Other ways we've leveraged is through testimonials. So we had a range of employees highlight to us why they enjoy the benefit of 5 weeks paid annual leave, which is something that Sportsbet does. And we asked them a couple of questions around that. So what do you do with that 5th week of leave? Why do you enjoy that perk in particular? And created these short form testimonials, popped them in social tiles, and ran a company post highlighting all the benefits, which was point 5, but then followed it up week on week for about 5 or 6 weeks with employee-generated testimonials, and actually got the employees to share this and post it out into their network, which was incredibly powerful. And then we also reshared and commented. And so from an ambassador program perspective, these are some of the results we've seen over the last sort of 2 years or so. So we've seen our increase in LinkedIn followers go from 10K to 23K. In 18 months. We've achieved a 27% female representation at shortlist in the technology space. And I'm really proud to say that's an achievement in and of itself, but because of the nature of the industry we work in, that is something that I'm really proud of the team for achieving. We also reduced our agency source of hire by 8% and increased our direct approach, which is actual direct headhunting to individuals, by 9%. The stat around the reducing our agency source of hire by 8% is incredibly important. Despite the fact we recruited 250 more roles than we had the previous year, we still managed to reduce agency spend. And so my tips for you if you're starting your ambassador program or you're wanting to refresh it, it sounds cheesy, but be really clear on what your company's strategic objectives are, your values and your EVP, because that's going to help in the early stages underpin some of the content that you might want to start to get from individuals. And you may have individuals that are super creative and can do that of their own accord, and that's great. But I know when we started, it was quite tricky to do that. So I had to have some prompting questions to begin with that they would answer authentically. Be really clear on what you're trying to achieve with your employee ambassador program as well. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Not everyone is necessarily trying to achieve the same thing. Put a call out for volunteers in your organisation, but also seek recommendations from people in your organisation if you don't get a lot of volunteers. Don't be disheartened if you don't get a lot of volunteers either. I know in the early stages, I had to be super creative about that, and I think I got about 10 or 15 to begin with, and when I was able to then ask for some recommendations, got a few more. When I started to produce some of that early content in the first 6 months and got people to share it, people liked what they saw, they wanted to get involved, saw the positive sentiment that was shared, and so then it kind of grew organically. Create a list of topics or themes that you'd like to have content and assets around. So for us, when we started, it was really around our benefits and our culture, just holistically. And then we moved into aspects like technology, data, women in sport, women in tech, things like that. Just don't get carried away, baby steps. And in addition, I'd just say start small. Ambassadors might just start by producing some aspects around just those short little statements or testimonials. And then you might have some that super excited about it, want to get straight into videos. If you do, tell me what the secret is, because it's still a challenge these days for the videos, but anywho. And then create a library or an online platform, whatever it might be. SharePoint, we use the Martech and their platform as well for our content creation, but there's a lot of different things out there you can use. You can just use simple SharePoint as well in terms of the storage of it. The Martech helps us in terms of the finessing of the content. The other thing I'd say is just remember as well, people contribute in different ways. So you're more likely to get input if you actually seek and ask people how they feel most comfortable contributing, because not everyone wants to do a video, not everyone wants to do an article on their own, but they might be up for doing a testimonial, or they might equally be up for doing a multi-contributor piece where they actually get to connect with their peers and there's a bit of a safety in numbers and then branch out. And then what I wanted to finish on was just touching about our referral program, which has been a mammoth team effort. So in terms of employee referral program, Obviously, it's a program where employees refer individuals. For us, this was a really missed opportunity previously. It was something we identified that we could really leverage. Previously, we had 3% of hires that were through referrals. And in terms of some key stats with referral programs, and we actually heard this in some of the presentations earlier, which made me go, phew, my data is spot on, is employee referrals are 5 times more likely to be hired than other standard sources. And in addition to that, you also have the fact that at the 1-year mark, employee referrals are the strongest source of retention at that 1-year mark compared to the next best, which is career websites. And so there's some of the benefits around there in terms of having a referral program. Some of the things we were really going after was reducing our hiring costs. We wanted to speed up our hiring process. We also wanted to fill really challenging roles because we knew we had a lot of growth in the tech and data space. And so some of the things that we did, and again, kudos effort to the team and Q in particular, we had some educational posts where we sort of shared particular roles that we were looking to get referrals for to kind of really dial up and amplify the presence of those internally. We also simplified our experience. I'll be really honest. When I first joined and I experienced what we had to do to apply for a role at Sportsbet if you were referring someone, it was a shit show. I work in TA and I got so confused about clicking this, clicking that, couldn't find a button for that. It was asking me for someone else's email, but it was me and anyway, so no wonder no one referred. And so simplified that a lot. There is still work to do there though. We had integrated comms that individuals could also share potentially. We haven't had as much of this at the moment, but it is something that's in our back pocket to leverage, which is around Meet My Mate. So if someone successfully introduces someone and they are hired, actually having them be introduced into the business. The last thing we did as well was reward and recognition, and it wasn't just about throwing money at things. There was aspects around celebrating successful referrals in other forms, but what we did do is we already had $1,000 for a successful referral. We increased that to $3,000 for hot jobs, so jobs that were really tricky to fill. And then when we went through our hiring blitz, spent quite a bit of time communicating the fact that we were going to have hot jobs, which were the next level up, and they were $10,000 referral fee. And then through an initiative that Q introduced, we had the quarterly pool, which for anyone that successfully referred someone, they went into an additional draw to win $1,000 once a quarter. And that was a great way to celebrate it. Keela and I also jumped on stage to promote the referral program at our town hall, dressed up in our grubs gear that we attended Talentpalooza at last year. We made complete fools of ourselves, didn't we? Yeah. It involved, I can't remember who had the bat and the ball, but fake bowling at each other on the stage. I think everyone at Sportsbet, mad sport people, had no idea what we were doing. But they got the message because we did end up amplifying our referral program and had a bit of a laugh along the way, which was cool. And so my tips for getting started from a referral perspective is, if you haven't already, experience what it's like to refer someone in your current process. Tip number 1, if you do nothing else. And then simplify it. Simplify the hell out of it. Be clear on what you want to achieve, same as with your ambassador program. What are you hoping to achieve by dialing up your referral program or implementing a referral program? And also importantly, similar to Adam's presentation, get your hands on the baseline data, because you need to be able to show return on investment for your own benefit, but also when you're talking to your senior leaders in the business and your leadership team. Know what motivates your employees as well. Not all referral programs are based on money. Some do additional leave days. It's a magnitude of things that are out there. Be clear on the program's guidelines and keep it simple. I've seen ones where there's like 50 million appendices. Just keep it simple for who is eligible, who is not. And celebrate wins authentically and proudly. That's where your EB initiatives can come in. So if someone does refer someone, have a really awesome way. It can be simple though that you share that win, because that will only encourage individuals and it keeps it alive within your organisation. And the last point is, use real employee success stories to promote that, both internally and externally as well. In terms of some of the impacts we've had, We've reduced our average time to fill by 10% holistically across the business. We've increased our source of hire through referrals from 3% to 11% in 9 months. Still a long way to go. Companies that are doing awesome jobs are doing sort of that 20 to 30% and even northwards of 30%, particularly for volume roles. And we reduced our monthly job board spend from 9K to 4K, which absolutely adds up and allows us to repoint those funds into other key initiatives. And so finally, my reflections for you would be, how will you capitalise on the current market conditions and leverage the people that are under your nose already? Market conditions, this is not a technical term, market conditions are always a bit feral. Like, if you look at it really, we've always got either talent shortages, we're not using our internal talent effectively, you've got the invasion of the Ukraine, you've got a pandemic, you've got a candidate-heavy market. It's time to kind of go, well, what is in my control and what am I going to do? And part of that is leveraging your employees. And so I would say, what are the key actions you need to take to prioritise, enable and empower your employees to share their stories and be more active advocates for you? And what are the small steps that you can begin to take tomorrow? Because a stat I heard earlier in the week was the talent shortage is expected to continue beyond another 50 years. And for all of us in this room, we don't want to be sitting in the same position. So I hope that gives you some tangible steps and some overarching thoughts and some tidbits. And thank you. Thank you for your time. Cheers.